Hello.
Hi,
My name is BC Oshineko, and today I have.
my name is Abby Agidee-a. Why everyone
So as
calls
you
me
can
Abby
see,
because it's complex.
so welcome to today's Facebook Live discussion. As you can see, I'm very excited about today because I think you have a lot. You're going to learn a lot from today's discussion. So let's do a quick sound and visual check. Let's just make sure everything works. So please leave us a comment if you can hear us properly, and also let us know if the you know um, visuals as well. Because sometimes I find that the internet can be quite funny. So please let us know if the audio and visuals, if they work just the way they should. So we'll just wait and see who is joining us right now. So, yes, we're talking about choosing a school for a child with special needs. So, once again, I want to welcome you to today's Facebook Live discussion. It's been a couple of weeks, I would say possibly 2 months since we've had a live discussion. It's just been busy, busy, busy. I'm sure it's the same as well for Abby, work, the kids and everything. But I'm really happy that today we have something really, really educational for everyone. And I think by the end of the discussion, you're going to be able to pick one or two things from the discussion. So yes, leave us a comment and let us know where you're joining us from. Also, if you don't mind, can you include your name as well? Because I think an update with this app or software is that it wouldn't. I think it's also due to privacy laws. It wouldn't tell us your name. So please include your name in your comments so that we can know exactly who is joining us. And we know that majority of you will be joining us. We're watching these on a replay. Let's just centralize this. Okay, I think I'm central now. Good. So we know that a lot of you will be watching these in a replay. So we'd also love to welcome you, and we'll also welcome your comments as well. So without further ado, please, Abby, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, my name is Abby. First and foremost, I'm here primarily as a parent of a child with special needs, so I'm not sort of talking in any professional capacity. So all my views are my own. I used to work in schools, mainstream schools mainly, as a business director. So I used to take schools from pre-opening inception to establishing to running the schools. I volunteer with a charity called IPSEA, where we advise parents on their legal rights when it comes to educational matters. And there are quite a few interesting developments in the works right now. Not least of all, a really nice two recent judgments that you might be interested in. And because I sort of started my own little company now, I work part time as an advisor for the Department for Education, helping out schools to be more efficient with managing themselves. So I'm one of 40 advisors in England. And that's me.
Fantastic. I think there's some sort of echo.
Yeah, I think so too. I
Let's
was
just let me just adjust the okay. So thank you so much for the lovely introduction. As you can see, Abby is very, very knowledgeable about this subject. I really can't think of anybody else who, will actually handle this topic, something to do with schools and education. I was particularly intrigued by a particular Facebook post I saw. I'm not sure, those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you must have seen a particular post that I shared from Abby, and it really, really generated a lot of discussion. Because I think that's something that is quite common. What Abby talked about is something that is really quite common, with parents. And also, I just feel really lucky that we're able to get Abby to talk to us today. So yeah, thank you once again. So in terms of choosing in terms of choosing a school for, a child with special needs. I really want to know your views on that. I mean, this is the actual subject for today. So I want to know your views on these subjects. What do you think are the factors that parents should consider when they are looking to select a school for their child who has additional needs?
For us, I'd say from experience, it was a very difficult emotional process, very grueling. I've got a 13-year-old with severe autism. He's got special needs. He still doesn't speak, so he's got severe dyspraxia as well. And he now is in full-time residential placement a few hundred miles away from home. So it was a very, very difficult, long, grueling process. But I'd say it involves you as a parent. You have to actually, first of all, deal with yourself as a parent before you start the process. Otherwise, your own emotions and your own lost hopes and dreams gets mixed up with what's best for the child, and you don't know where one starts and the other begins. So the first thing you've got to do is get your ideas of your hopes and dreams out of the way and look purely at what's good for the child. A lot of us want to go, my child in mainstream, therefore, bragging rights are a very big part. I have 10 children, they're all doctors, they're all lawyers, they're doing, you've got to prepare to take that away. First of all, because that's no longer a thing to brag about, and probably very soon those will be done by bots anyway. Second of all, it might not be what the child wants, and it might not be in their best interest to put them along the wrong track. So I'd say settle with yourself that you will start from a blank place of take a fresh look at your child and what do they need, what's best for them will be a good starting point. For most kids, and most especially kids with special needs, I believe in the input of an educational psychologist. We had to do that because we got to a point where we were dealing with lots of behavior problems. I had a hole in the wall in my living room from lots of behavior. We could only guess what it was because my son doesn't speak. We got an educational psychologist in. So she observed him at home, she observed him in school. She was able to actually pick out the differences. There were things about the learning environment that were optimal. There were things about it that were not working. There were some things about the home environment and when he was calm that would be perfect to transfer to a school environment. And by the time she helped us describe the setting, it sort of helped us decide, right, so this is what the child needs. And she was very clear on, he definitely has sensory issues. So you should be looking at occupational therapy. We've gone 10 years without actually really thinking about occupational therapy as being that important. She said, and we were focused on he doesn't speak, he must speak. We're getting speech therapy. We're putting all these resources in. And she went, when the child is in year 6, his frustrations have to do with communication. She picked out that he knew different things we couldn't actually imagine he did. So, for example, one of the assessments was he got a bunch of houses and she actually asked him to pick out a castle and a cottage, and he did. And we would never have thought in a million years that he could differentiate, that much. And then she started to go, you need to know what he knows. He needs to communicate. Speech is going to take so long. Why not try these other things and, just fight for it? So I would say that understand what your child needs. There might be, there are almost always times in that, for example, where I'm hearing forget about speech and we're fixated on speech, where we have to go away and cry and bury that one, but not quite bury it because, some people don't want to give up on it. But deciding that, fine, some people speak 2 languages, so we will take it for us as this is a 2-language thing. So she's saying, make speech the second language and make the alternative communication the first language. That's how, so there's a lot that you as a parent have to just take on board and think about. There was sort of the learning environment. Does he, is he a very social child? In fact, there is should he be in mainstream? Should he be in special schools? And the same way if you have a child without special needs and you're choosing a school, even mainstream, they're not all the same. So they're as different as special schools are different. So you've got to understand your child. You've got to be able to go to the school, visit the school, preferably not on the open day when it's all staged, because you want to know what will they do with my child on a very bad day. If you are very confident about what they will do with your child on a very bad day, then I think you've got a good school. I have when my son was in his primary school, and they were really amazing on a lot of levels. If they called me and said, your child is really sick, blah, 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 come and get him. Sorry, guys, I used to do this on purpose. I actually would not leave work to go and get him because that was the safest place he could be at that point in time for how he was feeling. Because we have a lot of people who just love the work they do. They knew him well. They would keep him safe. They keep him and they would do anything to get a smile back on his face. And me coming from work, having driven how many miles to go and get him to get home, would be really grumpy. So I was not likely going to pick him up at all. Sorry, Peter, but you guys are awesome. You know I love you. So for me, it was just, to me, a school is not just selling education. You're selling safety, you're selling well-being for my children. You know, I'm going to talk a bit about my younger child who hasn't got special needs. In fact, he's like the opposite. He's like extremely brilliant, Mensa member from the age of 6, grammar school child, blah, blah, blah. But there was a stage in his life where he was in a school that had a long waiting list. But my child comes home every day and goes, oh, I'm naughty, or I got a reward today because my teacher didn't tell me off. And I thought that was very bad for his development at some point. That pulled him out of that school. Because I know that you guys are like pushing him educationally. He was spelling the diplodocuses in reception, but putting my child in timeout because he was telling a teacher that he was arguing about negative numbers in reception, I felt was not the right approach, and it could sort of kill the child. So over time, I think it's just know your child, know what works. If your child is very, very social, then you want to imagine what their social circle would be like. Will they have friends? Will they develop? You know, will they be happy? And I know a lot of people feel traditionally. I remember watching a TV program where Chris's mom said, we didn't send you to school to be liked. When he was saying, everybody hates me and they're bullying me. And she was like, we didn't send you to school to be liked, we sent you to learn. But our kids now will learn under optimal conditions. So it's not so much like it's just about the happiness, but it's just they need to be happy enough and settled enough and comfortable enough to learn. So to me, I think you must look out for that. And if they need therapies, make sure the school has the therapies, wants to do the therapies, they want to engage with the therapies, and they're just open to working with you as a parent. You know, they're not all about, beware of the ones that are all about league tables and results, I'd say. And that's from the other side where I have worked with a lot of schools is not all that glitters is gold. Always remember that.
Fantastic. I'm already making notes and jotting, and I'm already learning so much, and I can tell that I'm definitely going to watch these over again so I can really take in some of the things you said. And I hope that our viewers, the parents, because in this group, whilst we're still a young group, we have Nigerian moms, we've got British moms, and then I know we have a few American moms. And please let me know certainly if there are other countries represented here that I'm not aware of. And I think this is actually relevant for, all, most countries, I'll say all countries, in terms of what you said, try to look at your child and try to prioritize the needs of your child. And that's really, really relevant. And I just really want to thank you for sharing these things with us. I also want to know your views on these mainstream versus special needs debates.
I think if we go with the what's best for the child option, I'd say I'd even go further as to say grammar school versus comprehensive versus special schools. I've got a child in grammar school and I've got a child in special school, and that's the best place for both of them. It depends on what's available to you locally and the sacrifices you would make. Because I did ask my husband this morning, like, what do you think? He said, well, you've got to look at the price you're paying as a family and whether it's worth it. You must always have that in the mix. We took a decision to move to where we are now because we had the local authorities very supportive. That has been our experience. So when we start to think of life changes we make, we know that even though now he's moved to a school like hundreds of miles away, I would not change, being in this local authority for anything. For the people we met, the way they are with special needs schools, the support has been really good. However, it hasn't quite worked for my other son, who is very able, but then he's able so he can commute. He was a 10-year-old commuting all the way into London to go into a private school at one stage. And he was okay with that. So at all points in time, you sort of look at the toll it takes on the family. If you visit enough mainstream schools and you find a mainstream school that is very open to the idea of integrating your child, I think it's worth taking, especially if you have two kids, because doing the school run to two schools was not easy. In primary school, we sort of had we had a childminder who would take one child to school, and then we'd have to, the au pair would stay home so that school bus could pick up my other son, and then somebody else picked my son from school to another place, and then of course he had to come straight home, and then the au pair would take him off the bus. At one point, we had 5 different people involved just to make it work. And I suppose we try not to think too long term. So I think I'm now a fan of the famous saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. Don't think whole elephant, just think what's next bite, next bite, next bite, maybe next 2-3 bites, but don't think whole elephant at any point. The thought becomes more overwhelming than the series of tasks you need to do. And I think everyone needs to bear that in mind. In visiting primary schools at one stage, when I started thinking that, Levi might be a lot more able, I came across a school where the head teacher actually turned around and said to me, actually, let's think about a dual placement. Perhaps your son can come in 3 mornings a week into my school from his special school. And then because he's learning sign language, I will put sign language on the timetable for the kids so that they will learn a bit of sign language and he will try his best, to integrate. And he can go back, so why not? And I want my kids to learn a bit more about other children and inclusivity. I mean, that really, really knocked me over. Like, wow, people like this actually exist. But they do. There are so many of them out there that would willingly take and do what they can. Funding can be a problem sometimes, but that's a different one that I think I'll bring up a bit. That's part of the EHC plan. Don't let the funding and the resourcing or whatever stories they tell you stop you from fighting for the best for your child. That I'd like to put out there. So I just thought, oh, wow, so that's an option. And I never really thought about that. Things that helped us also was a former schoolmate of mine. I found out she runs a breakfast and after school club in mainstream. And for a few years, she would take him. She did the pickups from his school straight into mainstream when he was in year 4. All the kids loved having him around, even though he was troublesome and he could run. So I suppose it was good competition for the athletic ones. The girls were, they mothered him a lot. Through being in a mainstream after school club, he got the opportunity to integrate, but we didn't have a lot of those situations where where the learning is going on at a pace that he can't cope with and it's disruptive. So the freedom of the fact that it was an after school club was helpful, but he got lots of opportunities to integrate. They went on trips. It was actually within that setting that was the first time he sat through a whole movie because he rode a bike because they did and they forced him to or something. But there are you've got to get out there. And contrary to how I was brought up, we don't tell anybody. We don't put our business out there. We don't show our vulnerabilities. I think you have to get help. The world is I believe the world is full of more people willing to help than you actually can imagine. So as I'm saying to people, oh my God, I can't cope with this. Yes, there are those who have some snake oil to offer you, let's go here. Go on, try plant stem cell or drink, starve your child and let them drink fresh warm water with a spot of lemon juice every day for 60 days. It cures everything. No, it doesn't. Okay, let's just take the crazies out of it. But generally, there are lots of people who actually, if you don't have a child with special needs and you have a family member, sometimes what can I do to help is all you need to ask, or just hold hand or let the person just vent if they need to. I had people who would cook for us so I wouldn't have to. That was really helpful. I had people who just call and go, are you okay? I have a big garden. Let them loose in my garden while you chill out with me. That was all I needed sometimes. So things like that are very helpful I consider education more than just a school. You get to observe your child in those settings. So before I can decide whether or not my son's good with mainstream, he'd been at the mainstream after school club. We'd been to friends' houses. Thank you, friends. We'd been in a few social events where I sort of got a feel for what that would look like. And then I think I got to a point where I thought, apart from the one offer I had of integration, it's just not, you're not going to do well in a mainstream school. One, you would disrupt the learning of others. Not just him, my other child disrupts learning quite a lot too when he's bored. So it's not because there's anything wrong with him, it's because there's something wrong with the setting or him. Everyone has a setting. You can't put me in a piano setting, play piano. I have no interest. I won't learn it. And when you sort of think sometimes about even kids with special needs like that, they have the interest, the skills, the prerequisite skills. And will they make friends? Because you find my experience in a particularly deprived secondary school in Kent was that a lot of the parents would bring the kids into mainstream and they would come with their friends from primary school. But very sadly, very quickly, when they hit puberty and they start to see girls, the kids, however able they are, sort of go their separate ways. And the kids with special needs get very quickly abandoned by their friends because it's suddenly no longer cool to be seen with them. And you've just got to accept that. That might be a thing. So it's what you've got to think about as well, especially at secondary school stage. What will puberty look like for my child? Will this setting work for my child? If they're going into puberty. And a number of them, the social circle has really changed. And it's been kind of disappointing on occasion. So you've got to be very careful about that. Having said that, you can change school at any point anyway. You don't have to change at the traditional point. You change at the points where you think you need to have a change. It's just a bit of a battle. Yeah. So I'd say forget this mainstream grammar, comprehensive, whatever. It's what do you have in your area where you live? Will they suit your child? Will you find dual play? I'm a fan of dual placement because when the head teacher told me about it, I absolutely loved the idea and the kids are always excited when it comes to primary school kids. Sign language, another novel, wonderful thing we can do, and it's secret coded language our parents will not understand. I thought that was nice. If you find that great, if you live in a school with really, really good, there's some schools that have like nice little autism units or hearing resources, so that within that setting you can have that integration. But like I said, stop thinking about it in terms of there's the stigma, I suppose, when you go mainstream special, then you're probably thinking stigma, someone somewhere is stigmatized. Think child best environment.
Yeah. That is such great nuggets. I have to say that a lot of the things you said, huge wisdom. I can relate to a lot of the things you said. And I really hope that, members of this group, I really hope you'll take advantage of, these broadcasts. I want you to listen to it, take notes if you need to watch it again, because you see, some of the things I've heard, honestly, they're the sort of things you will go to a huge conference to actually hear. So I really want to thank you for sharing these deep wisdom with all of us, in this group. Thank you so much. And we are concluding, so we're moving towards the end of the live discussion. And I just want to know if there's any advice you have for parents, like if there's anything you want to say to parents out there that as regards their child's education.
The big one I'd say is don't underestimate how much you get to know your child or you can get to know your child. Some cultures traditionally would defer to, either the health professionals or to the teachers as the experts. And then they sort of undermine their own knowledge or undermine what the child wants. But I would say, no matter what child it is, I think you need to start to do away with that. It was it last month that they decided, right, there's medicinal cannabis and that's okay after years of, no, it doesn't work. Or the parents who try to kidnap their child to go somewhere for alternative treatment. That's how the treatment works, because it's a proven technique in, an Eastern European country, or you get into a school. One of the things I have come to realize is I'm taking my child for all these hospital appointments with specialists. Think about the equivalent of I'm taking my child to, say, an autism specialist, or not just a speech therapy, but one who specializes in dyspraxia. And they have studied that very narrow thing for 20 years, and they're specialists, and they're still stumped, and they're still asking questions. you cannot go to a school, talk to a teacher who's done a 2-day course and claims to be a specialist and think they're a specialist. They really are not. To some extent, as an educator, you don't know what you don't know, and as a person, you don't know what you don't know. But what I'm saying is that you know more about that condition than they do. You've gone to all the specialists around your child's one condition. This poor special needs teacher has 50 different medical conditions they're dealing with, and a general overview that there is something called special needs, and that's the truth. So trust yourself, trust your ability to fight. There are now at least 3 court cases where parents are fighting the local authority to get more resourcing for their kids. The parents who took Bristol to tribunal have won. Hackney parents have done the same. Surrey's doing the same. And just the other day, there's something in the news about parents who have challenged their child's exclusion on the basis of his behavior. And then it's been ruled that the Equality Act didn't even get it right because that adverse behavior is not a choice. So excluding a child on the basis of adverse behavior where the behavior is not a choice, i.e. where they are, where it's part of a condition, he ruled that it was actually against their human rights. So the DFE is going to have to review what that means. Schools are going to have to rethink what that means. And there's sort of a big thing they're doing on behavior anyway, generally, and exclusions. So I would say this has come about mainly because parents have not turned around to the child and gone, you have disgraced me, what will people say? Which a lot of parents probably think of first. That's not what matters. They have turned around and decided that is this the best my child can get? I won't accept it. And I think we need to start to think that way a bit more about this. Surely this cannot be the best that this child can get. They can do better. It's always easier when you find a school that wants to work with you as a parent, where you sit down and go, I've heard this, are you willing to try this? And there are schools out there that are willing to try things with you, willing to work with you. Some schools are arrogant, it's all about league tables, all about that reputation. And if you're that kind of parent, fine. I think it's detrimental to a child's well-being. Like I said, grammar school parent, I can tell you hand on heart it is. But just work with the schools, trust yourself, listen to your child. Try and get them involved. Not so much that they make the final thing, but like I said, you say to child, I want you to do grade 8 piano or organ. Child is thinking in their head, I really want to cook. And they watch lots and lots of tasty videos on a rhythm. At that point, I'm thinking, maybe rather than think, oh God, my child's about to become Mama Put, I work in a booker. You might be thinking, Michelin star chef. Lady put it nicely when she said, guide them to the pinnacle of their interests.
Yeah.
So no, they probably won't be a doctor. They wouldn't do the academic stuff.
Yeah.
But hey, why not become, another Michelin star chef with your own brand of everything everywhere and your own little empire of regular, whatever, regular sauce, another Jamie Oliver's, another, there's a lot you can do once you're the best there is in the area that you choose. Yeah. And I think as a parent, we must actually put that, it's not what we wanted, but it's what they want. And they can be pretty damn good at whatever it is.
Wow. Fantastic. I have to say that I actually felt a bit emotional when you were talking about, like children who sort of show affinity towards non-academic stuff. I think for a lot of parents, and I know in this group we have some Nigerian parents, they will be able to relate to this in particular because everyone wants their children to be doctors and, lawyers, so I'm just really grateful that you've mentioned these. And while you were talking as well, it really took my mind to the fact that some of the conferences I have seen on education, a lot of them focus on mainstream children. So I think even though this discussion is supposed to be for the parents within this group, I think we should possibly share it outside this group because a lot more people need to hear this. They really need to hear this. And I'm sure that everyone has something to learn from what you've said. And I just want to say a huge thank you. And this is a final question. Conclusively, I'd really want you to tell our audience how they can reach you. I know you're very busy, but I'm sure that lots of people will, especially those who will be watching these in a replay, they will certainly want to get in touch with you to ask questions as regards education. I'm sure that people would like to know how they want to reach you. And one last thing as well, if you don't mind, is I want to, and I know I didn't tell you this, but I want you to please tell us about your business, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay. Right. How my business? My business, it's one of those things that you end up doing because you don't have a choice. I was working in schools as a business director in charge of, I don't know, finance, IT, it's what in Nigeria we used to call a VP admin role, because I have no academic interest whatsoever. And it got to a point where trying to sort of juggle the hospital appointments, the childcare was getting a bit much. And in fact, the behavior also got so bad that the transport wouldn't pick him up. So I had to do the school run. And schools were struggling with lots of restraints and episodes and issues. And I just suddenly thought, you know what, this setting has done everything it can and it's time to do something different. And the whole process, we almost went to tribunal. So I had to get, we got lawyers, we got specialists, we got therapists. We even spent a week in Wales at a really lovely center, getting him, properly assessed and getting a program in place. All of that just meant, and I thought, look, I have some skills. Let me just step out and see what I can do. So as soon as I left, and I'm a qualified accountant, so I started a small bookkeeping business. But within that, I do bookkeeping and advisory. But it turns out that people wanted more advisory than they actually wanted the bean counting. So I've ended up doing quite a lot of advisory, and most of it's in and around education. So I work with a particular board where I'm looking into special schools and behavior. And also another big mistake people make is when they hear special school, you lump everything together. And there's some groups that do not mix. For example, the group of people we call SCMH and kids with autism are the worst mix, because you have one group that have triggers because they like everything a particular way. Well, that's generalizing, and I hate to generalize, but they have one of the definitions is repetitive behavior, for example. And then you have a group, most of the children in the BESD very often have a very vulnerable home background, and they are seeking attention and they're looking for a reaction. And then you've got kids who are vulnerable to having a reaction, and then you put them in the same place. So it's really usually very explosive. And so I'm doing some work on that. Generally, I provide advisory services to parents, small businesses, but like I said, most of my time is taken up with schools now. Advising schools on how to maximize their funding to get the best outcomes, especially special schools. I have to say, especially special schools, or schools that take on a lot of schools that are reluctant to take on children with special needs or who have a plan because they worry that it's not going to be funded. That's a passion of mine, is to sort of work with both parties to see if we can broker something.
Lovely, lovely. It's so great to learn more about your business, and I really hope that anyone who is interested in Abby's services should please get in touch. I'm always very, very passionate when I meet moms who juggle so much, and you can tell that Abby is a super mom. Because her son is older, and you can tell that she has a lot of years of experience. I think based on some of the things she said about her services, is anyone at all who you should consider for these services, I would really highly recommend Abby. And I want to say thank you finally once again for your time. I know that you're really busy, and I just want to appreciate you for taking out the time to chat with all of us today. Thank you so much, and wishing you all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Wish everyone all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.